Hello, you wonderful people. In this tutorial of our epic Next.js course, we're going to take a look how to use authentication in Next.js and save our data via our HTTP-only cookie. If you take a look at our website, if we want the user to be able to enter their information and be able to register an account with our backend, which is being hosted with Strapi. You could reference the article that I wrote. There will be a link in the description of this video for any code snippets that we may use. But you could also learn more about Strapi authentication on their website. You could learn more about authentication with Strapi in the documentation. We're gonna scroll down until we see where we have our register section. And here you could see all we have to do is make a post request and pass our user data. If we were going to test this in Insomnia, we are going to make a post request to our endpoint and pass our user data. So when I click send, we're going to get back our JWT token and our basic user information. You can learn more about JWT from their JWT.io website. Really awesome resource for anything that you want to know about JWT tokens. Now, if we take a look at our Strapi application and refresh, notice we have our first user. So let's go ahead and create the sign up page. In VS Code, let's navigate to source, data, and create a new folder called services. And here we're going to create a new file called auth/service.ts. Here we're going to add all of our logic necessary to handle our Strapi logins. We're going to use our blog post as reference, so navigate to the authentication section and see this code snippet for our auth/service. I went ahead and created some helpful functions that allow us to make the process of registration much easier. So let's go ahead and copy this process. If you're wondering, this is all based on the documentation that you will find on our Strapi website. In our code editor, I'm going to paste in the snippet. And if you scroll to the top, notice that we are referencing a util function, and that's something that we created in our previous videos. So this is all set. We have our service to register user, and we also have our service to log in our user. Fantastic. So now we're ready for the most important part. Let's navigate to actions, to our auth actions.ts file, and we're going to do our work inside this register user action function. So let's do it. First things first, before using our register user service, let's go ahead and import it from the top. So I'm going to say import register user service from our services. Now back inside our function, I'm going to go ahead and delete this console log because it's no longer necessary. We know it works. So let's scroll down after our auth validation, and after the if statement where we check if it's successful, we're going to utilize our register user service that's going to take our validated fields and is going to return our response data. Once we get our response data, if something is wrong, we're going to return our previous states, and we're just going to return our messages. Oops, something went wrong. Please try again. But if our response has a Strapi error, we're going to go ahead and create a new key in our object Strapi errors, and we're going to pass that data to it. And finally, before our return statement, let's just console log our response data and see if we're getting back our JWT token. So let's test out our sign up form. So in the front end of my application, inside our sign up form, I'm going to say test user for username, test user at email for our email, and the password will just keep test user. And let's click sign up. We didn't handle the redirect, but we should at least see our console log in our terminal. So taking a look at our terminal, we are successfully getting our JWT token back. Now, before taking a look how we could take our response and save it to our HTTP only cookies, let's go ahead and handle the case if we have a Strapi error. For instance, if we get a Strapi error, we want to make sure that we show a message to our user. In our article, we have this Strapi errors component. So let's go ahead, copy the code, and inside VS Code, let's navigate to our components, custom, and we create a new file, and we're going to call it Strapi errors.tsx. And let's go ahead and paste in our code. This is just going to make our errors pretty. So let's go ahead and use this component inside our form. So navigate to app, components, forms to our sign up form. And let's import our Strapi errors from our component that we just recently created. Now that we have our Strapi errors component, let's navigate to our button And right below, let's go ahead and add our Strapi errors. So if there's a Strapi error, we are going to be able to see it. So in our front end, if I create a user with the same email, we should get back an error. So let's give it a try. Test user. And when I click sign up, email and username already taken. Great. We know that our Strapi errors are showing up as well. So let's go and do that final step of setting our cookies and redirecting our user. You could learn more about Next.js cookies and how to handle them in Next.js documentation. We're going to use the set method to set the cookies in our app. So let's go ahead and do that. In our code, let's navigate back to our data actions auth action.ts folder. We're going to scroll all the way to the top and we're going to import our cookies from Next headers. Since we want to set our cookies as HTTP only, we need to pass a configuration file. We're going to define the max age, our path, our domain, our HTTP only will be set to true, and if in production, set secure as true. Now inside our register user action, if everything is successful, let's go ahead and set our cookie. We're going to pass our response data with our JWT and our config. Finally, once this succeeds, we want to redirect our user to the dashboard. Again, you could learn more about redirects in Next.js, but we're going to scroll to the top and we're going to import the redirect from Next navigation. And right after our cookies, we're going to go ahead and add that redirect. We could remove all this unused code since it's no longer needed. Now we're going to be redirecting to dashboard. That page doesn't exist, so let's go ahead quickly create it. Inside app, let's create a new folder and it's going to be called dashboard. And inside this folder, create a new file called page.tsx. In our blog post, you could grab the snippet for a dashboard route. Let's go ahead and paste it and add it in VS Code. Perfect. Now we should have the dashboard page. So now let's go ahead and test our redirect. I'm going to create another user, test user2, test user2 at email.com, and password for test user. When we click sign up, notice that we get redirected to our dashboard. Awesome. Before leaving this video, let's make this button more awesome. And in the process, learn about pending states. We could get our form status from the use form status hook. You could find the examples on the Next documentation, but let's take a look how we could use it in our button. Navigating to our blog post, you're going to see the code snippet for our component that we created. So let's go ahead and create our submit button component and copy and paste this code and quickly walk through it. Inside our code editor, let's navigate to our components, custom, and create a new file. And we're going to call it submit button.tsx. And inside, we're going to paste in our code. Here we are importing our use form status, and scrolling to the bottom, we could see how we are using the hook to get status, and we're checking if there is pending state. And based on the state, we're going to go ahead and show the loader. So let's go ahead, import this component and try it out. Inside your code editor, navigate to our sign up form. And now we're going to replace our regular button with our newly created submit button component. Make sure that you import it in the top. So let's import after Strapi error, say import submit button component. Perfect. So let's go ahead and test out our loading spinner. I did slow down my network so we could see it. So I'm going to say Paul at email.com and password test user, sign up. And that was really quickly. Currently, we're not checking our authentication to see if our user is logged in or not. And we're also not protecting the routes. That's why regardless if you're logged in or not, you could navigate back to the dashboard. But we want to protect that route. And that's exactly what we're going to do in the next video with Next.js middlewares. So I'll see you there.